I didn't realize how close I came to throwing away 2 years of my life until the moment I saw my manager's signature at the bottom of a contract that wasn't even from our company. And I need to start this exactly the way it happened. Not dramatic, not embellished, just the truth of a guy who walked into a meeting room expecting a routine check-in and walked out holding a document that could have chained him to a man he didn't trust. Because on that Tuesday morning, I genuinely thought this was normal. I genuinely thought he was looking out for the team. I genuinely thought I owed him the benefit of the doubt. That was my biggest mistake. The meeting room smelled like burnt coffee and old carpet glue. Fluorescent lights flickered with that dull hum that always made me feel like my brain was vibrating. I'd barely sat down when my manager, Carl, slid a thick printed document across the table like a cop dropping evidence. "Sign this by end of day," he said. No greeting, no explanation, just an order delivered with a smile that didn't touch his eyes. I flipped the stack open. "What is it?" "Standard non-compete," he replied casually, leaning back in his chair like the hero of his own story. "Everyone on the team is signing, just a formality." I scanned the first page, and my stomach tightened. It wasn't just a non-compete. It was a muzzle. It said I couldn't work in the same industry for 2 years. Couldn't freelance, couldn't consult, couldn't even utilize proprietary methods acquired during employment, which was everything I did for a living. "I haven't seen this from HR," I said slowly. "It's new," he replied instantly, a little too fast. "Upper management approved it. Don't worry about the details. It's already cleared." Then came the line that still pisses me off. "You're a loyal guy, right? Team players don't pick things apart." I felt the manipulation wrapped in honey. Loyalty as leverage. Pressure disguised as trust. I forced a neutral expression. "Can I take this home to review?" He didn't like that. His jaw twitched. "We don't need to make a big thing out of this. Everyone else signed it right away." A lie. I could hear it in the way he rushed the words, like he was rehearsing a script he wrote himself. "I still want to read it," I said. He exhaled through his nose, annoyed but trying not to show it. "Fine. End of day. No later." I tucked the document into my laptop sleeve and walked out, feeling his eyes on my back the whole way. The hallway felt too quiet. I could sense something off, but I didn't know what yet. I just knew my instincts were whispering, "Don't sign anything that fast." When lunch came, I didn't eat. I sat in my car with the sun baking the dashboard and read the contract line by line. The deeper I got, the stranger it felt. Clause 14. I wouldn't be allowed to work for any client entity, partner entity, or aligned enterprise for 24 months. Clause 21. A requirement to report outside income, opportunities, or business discussions to the managing officer. Clause 27. The contract was issued by a company I didn't recognize, Northbridge Talent Solutions, LLC. Why would a non-compete from our company list a completely different company as the issuer? I scrolled to the signature area. Carl had already signed his section, but where it usually said our corporate legal department's email, there was a generic Gmail address. Not even a custom domain. That's when my heartbeat changed. Not panic, not fear, just a slow, cold awareness settling into place. By the time I got home that evening, I'd already decided to check the sender on DocuSign. It wasn't our internal system. It wasn't even a corporate subdomain. It was a personal account with a slightly misspelled version of our company's name. The kind of trick people use when they don't want IT to see what they're doing. I typed the name Northbridge Talent Solutions, LLC into the business registry database. It loaded slowly, the way pages do when your entire future is balanced on the next few seconds. And then the ownership information appeared. 2 names, one stranger and the second. Carl Masters, my manager. My manager co-owned the company that wanted my signature. My manager had tried to force me to sign a contract with his business, not our employer. And I just sat there staring at the screen, realizing how close I came to signing away my career to a man who wasn't protecting the company. He was protecting his other life. A life he clearly didn't want anyone in the office to know about. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't panic either. I just lay there in the dark with that slow, steady coldness in my chest, going over every conversation, every subtle guilt trip, every team player's speech he'd given us over the years, every time he'd pushed someone to stay late, every time he'd discouraged someone from talking to HR, every time he'd said, "This is between us," and somewhere between midnight and 3 a.m., a simple truth formed so clearly I could almost hear it. He wasn't trying to protect me. He was trying to trap me. And the only question left was why. But that was the night I realized something else. Something quieter, heavier, more dangerous. If he'd tried this with me, how many others had already signed? And what exactly was he doing with a company that looked so much like ours? That question was the one that wouldn't let me sleep. It was the one that pushed me into HR's office the very next morning. Because if Carl wanted loyalty, he picked the wrong person to corner. By the time my alarm went off the next morning, I already knew I was walking into something bigger than a shady contract. I just didn't know how big yet. I printed out the pages, slid them into a folder, and headed to the office earlier than Carl, intentionally. The building was quiet in that hollow way offices are before the coffee machines finish their first cycle of heating up. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and typed the company name again. Northbridge Talent Solutions, LLC. The listings were clearer in the daylight. The two owners were listed with addresses, emails, and formation documents. Carl's name wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't an alias. It wasn't a look-alike. It was him. His home address was on the registration. His signature was on the digital filing. He'd signed his name without even using a middle initial to hide it. Then I noticed something else. Northbridge offered project consulting, resource allocation, and client relationship onboarding. Those were our services, word for word. And the website footer listed 3 clients, 2 of which were in our internal pipeline for next quarter, meaning he wasn't just running a side gig, he was running a competitor. I felt irritation simmer beneath my ribs, the kind that's too steady to be called anger. It was insult. Someone had looked at me like I was stupid enough to sign my career away without checking the name on the damn paper. Someone who stood in front of the team every Monday and told us to keep things transparent. Co-workers started trickling in. The clatter of keyboards, the soft chatter, the hum of monitors. I watched each of them settle into their seats, wondering who had already signed that fake non-compete, who had been pressured, who had been manipulated into thinking Carl was speaking for the company. At 9:18 he walked in, coffee in hand, wearing that confident half-smirk he always had when he believed he was the smartest man in the room. "Morning," he said, tapping my desk. "Got that contract ready for me?" "Not yet," I answered evenly. His smile tightened. "What's the holdup?" "I read it," I said. "There are things I don't understand." "You're overthinking," he said. "It's simple. Legal wants it. HR wants it. It protects you too." He said legal and HR with the kind of tone you use when you're counting on someone not checking. "I'm going to ask them directly," I replied. His hand froze on his cup. "No need," he said lightly, but his voice strained at the edges. "They're swamped. This isn't on their radar. Just sign it, and we can all move forward." There it was again, that phrase he loved. We can all move forward, which really meant, don't look behind the curtain. "I'll let HR confirm it," I said quietly. He stepped closer, too close. "Look," he said, "you don't want to create problems where there are none." Interesting choice of words, considering he had created every single one of them. When he walked away, stiff-shouldered, pretending not to be rattled, I opened a blank email. 2. HR General Subject. Verification needed. I attached the contract, wrote a short line. "Can you confirm this is an official document?" And hit send. 40 minutes later, HR replied, "Please come to the 11:30 meeting room B. Bring the document. Bring anything else you have." No exclamation marks. No corporate softening. Just direct urgency. Before that meeting, I wanted one more piece of evidence. Something that showed Carl wasn't just pushing contracts. He was funneling clients. I opened his LinkedIn, completely public, and clicked on Activity. He didn't post often, but he interacted a lot. I scrolled past the motivational quotes and the managerial fluff until I found it. He had liked a post from Northbridge Talent Solutions 4 days ago. A post announcing a new consulting partnership with a client we'd pitched to internally last month. He wasn't just moonlighting, he was double dipping. I screenshotted it, timestamped it, and added it to the folder. At 11:27, I walked into meeting room B. HR director, legal counsel, and a corporate auditor were already there. No small talk, no smiles. "Please sit," the HR director said. I handed them the folder. The legal counsel flipped through the pages slowly, expression blank, but eyes narrowing slightly at each clause. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "From Carl," I said. "Yesterday." HR wrote something down. "Were you told where it came from?" He said it was standard. He said everyone was signing. "Has anyone else received this?" "Yes," I answered. He implied the entire team had. They exchanged glances. Not surprised glances. Alarmed ones. The legal counsel tapped the company name at the bottom of the document. "This is not us," he said flatly. "I know," I replied. The HR director leaned back. "Did he instruct you not to talk to us?" "Yes." "And did he express consequences for not signing?" "Yes." The auditor closed the folder. "This is extremely serious," she said, "and it aligns with other flags we've seen." Other flags. That phrase landed like a quiet punch. "Is he under investigation?" I asked. They didn't answer directly. "We appreciate you bringing this to us," HR said. Instead, "Do not confront him. Do not mention this meeting, and if he pressures you again, inform us immediately." As I stood to leave, the legal counsel added one more sentence. Soft, steady, absolute. "This is not a contract. It's a trap." I walked out of that room with a strange feeling I didn't expect. Not fear, not relief. Something sharper, something steadier. Because that meeting wasn't the end. And the silence in the hallway after the door closed told me exactly that. Something had just begun. By Monday morning, the air in the office felt different. Tight, heavy, like the pressure before a storm. People moved quieter. Screens locked faster, doors closed sooner, and Carl walked in wearing the same confidence as always, but it didn't fit him right anymore. His smile was too stretched, his steps too controlled. His eyes flicked toward HR's hallway more than once, like he expected someone to appear and call his name. I kept my head down and acted normal. HR's warning echoed in my mind. Do not confront him. Do not reveal anything. Let the process work. But Carl didn't let anything stay quiet for long. At 10:12 a.m., he appeared beside my desk. No greeting, no smile. "Conference room, now." I followed him, not because I wanted to, but because pretending everything was fine was part of the plan. He closed the door behind me, and then stood in front of it, blocking the exit like a bouncer at a club where no one wants to be. "You didn't sign," he said, not a question, a verdict. I said I needed time. "You've had time." I met his eyes. "It's not a company document." His jaw tightened. "What makes you say that?" "You know why." For a second he didn't blink. Then he laughed. A single sharp exhale. "You're getting paranoid," he said. "Look, if you're worried about the legal language, I can simplify it. The contract protects us. It keeps the team stable." "Us?" Interesting choice. "And HR?" I asked. "Do they think it keeps us stable too?" That landed exactly the way I expected. His expression didn't break, but something behind his eyes shifted. Calculation, fear, anger, I couldn't tell. Maybe all three. He stepped closer. "You didn't talk to them?" I kept my face neutral. Why wouldn't I? "Because it wasn't necessary," he said. "Because I told you I had it handled. Because I told you this was already approved." He didn't say, "Because you're supposed to listen to me," But the words hung in the air anyway. And if I did talk to them, I asked. His smile flattened. Then you made a mistake. A threat? Clean, quiet, disguised as concern. I didn't flinch. I'm not signing, I said simply. For a moment it looked like he might say something reckless, something that would seal his fate. But he swallowed it, smoothed his shirt, adjusted his watch, and said, You're putting your job at risk. Think carefully. Then he opened the door and walked away like he'd won the conversation. He had no idea the ground beneath him had already cracked. An hour later, IT appeared on our floor. Not the help desk kids. The two security engineers who usually only showed up when someone downloaded ransomware or when legal needed a forensic pull. They walked straight past me and stopped at Carl's desk. Carl, we need your laptop. His face went blank, then flickered with something like confusion poorly performed. Why? I'm in the middle of... It's not optional, one of the engineers said. We'll give you a loaner. They unplugged his docking station while he still had his hands on the keyboard, as if hoping he could keep typing through sheer will. He forced a laugh. This is ridiculous. What's this about? They didn't answer. They never do. He tried to follow them to the elevator, but HR intercepted him halfway. Gentle hand on his elbow, professional smile. Carl, we need to speak with you for a few minutes. He stiffened. Right now? Yes. Now. He shot me a glance across the floor. Not suspicion, not anger, recognition. Like he finally understood he wasn't holding the deck anymore. Word spread quietly. People spoke without really speaking. Slack channels went still. The office had that strange electricity of collective awareness. Everyone pretending they didn't know what was happening while absolutely knowing. By 3 p.m., Carl hadn't returned. By 4 p.m., his keycard stopped working. At 4:27, the elevator dinged, and he stepped out accompanied by HR and security. Not in handcuffs, not dramatic, just stripped of authority in the clean, dry way corporations excel at. His desk was already cleared. Someone had boxed everything while he was in the conference room. He didn't look at anyone this time. He didn't speak. He didn't even touch the box. Security carried it for him. He walked toward the exit like the floor might swallow him if he moved too fast. And yet, that wasn't the part that stayed with me. It was the moment just before he stepped through the doors, when he turned his head slightly, saw me watching, and froze for half a second, as if he finally understood exactly how much he had underestimated the people he thought he could control. I didn't smile. I didn't flinch. I didn't move. He left the building without another word. I thought that would be the end. But corporate storms don't end when the lightning hits. They end when the smoke clears, and the damage becomes impossible to hide. Because that night, just after 6 p.m., an email landed in everyone's inbox with a subject line I'd never seen before. Mandatory policy clarification. Immediate read required. And when I opened it, I realized Carl's exit was only the beginning, not the conclusion of what was coming next. The email sat at the top of my inbox like a flare fired straight into the night sky. Mandatory policy clarification. Immediate read required. When I clicked it open, the message was written in that rare, unmistakable corporate tone. The one without fluff, without excuses, without room for interpretation. Any non-compete, NDA, or employment addendum not issued directly by corporate legal is null and void. If you were presented with documents not matching our official templates, contact HR immediately. Below that was a short line, almost too calm. We are conducting an internal audit. Nobody needed footnotes for what that meant. Within an hour, the entire floor felt lighter. Not relieved, not happy exactly, but unshackled. A couple of coworkers gave me looks that lasted a little too long, like they knew I had something to do with this, but no one asked. They didn't need to. If they had signed Carl's contract, they now knew it never meant anything. If they hadn't, they now understood why something had felt wrong the past few weeks. Around 10 a.m., HR asked me to come back to meeting room B. Same room, different energy. When I walked in, the HR director and the corporate legal counsel were already seated. The HR director began, "Carl is no longer with the company, huh? We've completed the preliminary review." No fanfare, no dramatics, just the outcome. I nodded once. "Is the team protected?" She slid a paper toward me, a single-page official statement stamped and signed. It confirmed 3 things. 1. Carl's contract was unauthorized. 2. No employee was legally bound to anything he circulated. 3. Any pressure, threat, or coercion would be documented in their investigation. And then came the part that genuinely surprised me. "We also want to discuss your role in this," the legal counsel said, not accusatory, appreciative. "How so?" I asked. "You reported something that could have created significant liability for the company," he said. "You were calm, factual, and you gave us time to act. You handled it professionally, and that protected everyone. It wasn't praise. It wasn't flattery. It was recognition, clean and straightforward." Then the HR director continued, "We'd like to move you to a different department, under Director Shaw. It's a lateral move with a raise. The new team needs someone who can handle complex situations without escalation." In plain English, they wanted me away from the fallout and closer to people who actually valued sanity. I accepted, not because of the raise, because I was done working in the shadow of Carl's leadership. Over the next week, details about what HR found trickled through the company the way corporate secrets always do. Quietly, then everywhere at once. Carl hadn't just been running a competing business. He'd been using company resources to do it. Exported CRM data, client lists forwarded to his personal email, weekend logins where he pulled account histories, Slack messages to a former coworker coordinating shared opportunities. Even an invoice he accidentally sent from his work address to one of Northbridge's clients. It was all there. It had always been there. Everyone just assumed he was sloppy, not dangerous. The company filed a civil action within days. HR didn't announce it publicly, but legal documents don't stay secret long. One morning, someone in finance whispered, "They're suing him for breach of contract and misuse of proprietary data." Carl disappeared from LinkedIn for exactly 2 weeks before reappearing with a vague open to work post and a profile stripped of anything that could be considered specific. He listed his last job title as consulting manager. No company name, no achievements, just air. Northbridge Talent Solutions quietly went offline a month later. The website redirected to a page not found. The LLC status flipped to dissolved, and his business partner, the one whose name I didn't recognize, filed a termination statement that basically read, "I'm out. This is dead. Don't attach me to it." Carl didn't just lose his job. He lost everything he tried to build behind everyone's back. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't karma. It was cause and effect. On my first day with my new team, I met Director Shaw, a quiet, older man with a notebook full of neatly scribbled reminders and a habit of thinking for 3 seconds before he spoke. He shook my hand and said, "I've heard good things. We'll keep things simple here." Simple sounded perfect. The team welcomed me without questions, without whispers, without walking on eggshells. They worked like adults. They spoke plainly. They shared credit. They didn't confuse loyalty with submission. By the end of the second week, my desk didn't feel borrowed. It felt mine. There was one more loose end. Something I didn't realize needed resolving until the moment it happened. Late Friday afternoon, one of my old teammates, a quiet guy named Eric, caught me in the hallway. He hesitated, then said, "Hey, thanks." I raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For not letting him corner us," he said low. "I almost signed it. A lot of us almost did." I nodded once. Not heroic, not emotional. "Just did what made sense," I said. He breathed out, like that answer alone lifted something from his shoulders. My life didn't turn dramatic after that. It didn't explode into a celebration or a triumph. It settled into something better, a rhythm that didn't include manipulation, threats, or hidden agendas. Some people think closure comes from confrontation, but sometimes it comes from a locked door, a cleared desk, and a quiet office returning to normal. One evening, weeks later, I stayed a little late to finish up a report. The building was calm, the lights dimmed automatically, and as I packed my bag, I realized something simple and final. Carl had tried to trap me with a contract he didn't even have the right to hand me. He tried to own my future, and in the end, the only thing he managed to lose was his own. I walked out of the office, let the door close behind me, and didn't look back.